So you ready to kick this off?
Let's rock it out.
All right, gang. So welcome, Matt Plapp. This is Dave Nitzel, as you can see, and Dave Domzowski, who you cannot because he struggles managing his cameras. Matt is just launched a really cool new book. I had secretly, I'll tell you, I had asked for some extra time so I could read the whole thing. I really like the book, and I'm excited to talk to you about it. You still owe me a hard copy, by the way. I'm not letting you get away with that. Yeah. But with that as a setup, tell us a little bit about, I've got a handful of questions that I'm excited to ask you. But before I just start dumping my thoughts and opinions and questions, tell me why this book, why this book, why now, why'd you write it?
Yeah. So first of all, thank you guys for having me on. I appreciate the opportunity, appreciate the support and the love, saying you like the book. So that only cost me money. I had to pay for that. No. So this book, I've written 5 books, 3 which we've published. This is the 3rd one. 2 of them we haven't published yet because one of them sucks. Honestly, it's terrible. And then I literally wrote it, got done. I'm like, okay, I don't want to read this. Yeah. And then the other one is going to come out in a couple of years when I have more of an established name because it's a lot deeper and doesn't really resonate yet. But my first 2 books, Don't 86 Your Restaurant Sales and Sell More Slices, were meant to introduce a strategy of digital marketing to restaurants. And when I heard back, because they did really well, my company benefited 7 figures from the sale of the books and the coaching and the clients and all the good stuff down the road that came with it. But one thing I heard from a negative standpoint from a lot of operators, and this was kind of the idea though too, was, Matt, the book's great. There's a lot of cool stuff in there, but half of it, I have no clue what the hell you're talking about. It's too techie. And that was one of the visions of the book was, hey, I'm going to give these people enough to go, hey, this is pretty cool stuff. We need to go talk deeper. But I found out a lot of people are just too busy to take that next step. So, I wanted to put in place a book that talked about our strategy behind what we help restaurants and consult with restaurants on and advise them on, and what I talk about a lot versus actually doing it. And so, our company, America's Best Restaurants, we have 2 divisions. We have the media arm, which films a TV show at restaurants every week. And we have the marketing side, which helps restaurants find customers. Frequent customers is our goal. How do we help you find frequent customers? And within there, we have a strategy we call ABR. It stands for America's Best Restaurants, but also attract, build, retain. And I wrote this book off of that kind of that framework of there's 5 tactics within there that help you attract attention, that help you build a database, and that help you retain the attention. Because at the end of the day, that's what it's all about, attention. I don't wear orange for the heck of it. I wear orange to get attention, to get noticed, to get remembered. So that when some restaurant owner is having a bad day and not having enough customers, comes in and he sees an orange cup in the garbage can and goes, "Oh, Matt Plapp, call him." So I think that was my big reason of it, was something that could be more digestible. And honestly, the first books were a little selfish in that they probably had to call us to figure out the pieces. There was like puzzle pieces in there missing. This one, 100%. I'm confident that you can. I've had 2 friends of mine that aren't even in the restaurant business, that are, one's a realtor and one's in the mortgage space. They both read it and said, "Matt, I just told my team to cover up restaurant, and it's marketing that works because everything in here is relative from anywhere. Just replace the word restaurant." But I wanted to give, I started writing this in late 2019, early 2020. And I wanted to give restaurants a basic level of marketing because I come from the radio background and I've watched businesses spend $4,000, $5,000, $6,000 on the radio. I've watched one location restaurant sponsor the Cincinnati Bengals for $70,000 a year. And I'm like, dude, your website sucks. Your in-store marketing sucks. You don't even have online ordering, but you're spending $70,000 on the most useless marketing for you ever, the Cincinnati Bengals. Like you don't have what I call an FU budget. You don't have a big enough budget to get to that point. And so when I wrote the book, that was my goal, was let's do the basics. And the original title was, the subtitle was Back to the Basics 101. And then my publisher called me up in November of, what year is this? November of 2020. After this last year and a half, feels like 5 years. Yeah. I have to look at my calendar and remember what it is. But he called me up in November and said, "Hey, okay, I know you're going to have everything done for me early next year," which I got it done in like April, May instead of early. What did you change? What did you pivot? And I said, "What do you mean?" He's like, "Well, everybody pivoted during the pandemic. What did you change?" I said, "Nothing. Like the stuff we were doing before the pandemic for clients, they needed more than ever during it. And I sure as hell hope they realize they need it after." And he's like, well, let's change the subtitle to before, during, and after the pandemic. And that's what we did.
Well, I'll tell you, I think everything you just said is basically what I like the most about the book. You really lay it out. You don't cover the secret sauce. You put it out there as to, hey, here's how we do it. Here's how you should think about it. It's done with a certain confidence, which I appreciate. And you eliminate a lot of the BS. I just don't think people, when they read books, especially, you'd reference it, I think, when you read our book, just get all the fat out of there.
Yeah.
Tell me what I need to know, get to it. Don't BS me. And what I think is different, I'll get into maybe a topic Dave and I are going to cover, not here, but I'm going to set it up a little bit, is the labor side of things.
Yeah.
So, and here's what I'd like to, this is kind of my first question / scenario for you. So many clients that we work with, their marketing program looks something like the owner with an Instagram account, a Facebook account. It looks like a bartender that wants to make a little extra money. Hey, I'm gonna pay this person an extra $50 a week, and they're gonna post photos on Facebook and Instagram, and we're gonna post a photo of what's happening Friday and Saturday night. We're gonna post a photo of the wing special, and that's the marketing program. And I think, if I'm speaking for them, and I'm confident that I know them well enough that some of them feel this way, as long as someone is posting, then they have a marketing program and it's working. And that's about it. And you go, so that's the first part. Now here's the second part. I have a strong belief system built around the idea that using professionals, good pros, pays for itself. And we find ourselves post-pandemic. Here's where I may challenge your subtitle just a little bit. Yep. We're in a post-pandemic world where labor shortage is a very real thing. Yep. And anything we can outsource, anything we can stop doing. What's our new stop doing list? And I think stop having your staff who has a nice Instagram account and Facebook account, or even the owner, stop relying on people on the team to do stuff that's outside your core competency. And I think marketing 1000% hits the mark on this. So what do you think about that in terms of what do you typically see? And I know what it should look like after reading the book. So I've got the should part, and I don't want to give away the book, right? I don't want to
give away the book.
People should buy the book, but what do you think about those sentiments? Well,
we've got a little soundboard over here that if I was doing this, I could hit a button and it would have like, it would clap. And that's what I would do there, because it absolutely amazes me. The amount of restaurant operators that have people that have no business handling. In my opinion, there's two things that are the most important part of every business: marketing and sales. Because I've read a lot of great books about this, that with sales, you can have the shittiest product, but if you have sales, you can find a way to overcome it. Mm-hmm. If you have a great product and you have great sales, boom. If you have great product and great sales and marketing, boom. I'm amazed the number of restaurant owners that don't realize they're in the marketing and sales business. Mm-hmm. And maybe I'm wrong. I don't think I am. I'm pretty confident I'm not. But at the end of the day, if you know how to sell and you know how to market, you can figure out the food role. And this is where I'll answer your question there. My son, Cole, started working at Grandma's Pizza 6 months ago. He's 17 years old, great kid, but has no clue what the hell he's doing in the kitchen or anything else. He didn't walk in the restaurant and Alfredo go, hey, Cole, I want you to rebuild the menu and let's figure out what we can do to get this restaurant more profitable. And I say that because that's what they're doing with their marketing. Yeah. Oh, hey, we got an 18-year-old that has a cool Instagram account, takes cool pictures. She's going to market the restaurant. And it kills me because I know people, I know our company, and I can name 20 other companies that are very, very, very competent professionals that a restaurant can hire for $5 to $10 grand a year. And I don't care if you're a $500,000 restaurant and you're not spending 20 to 30 grand a year in marketing, you might as well close. And I had a conversation today with an operator who's doing 480 grand in sales, and his goal is to get to 6. And he's like, I got a lean operation. And he's like, what should my budget be? And I said, well, here's what you got to look at. I think you should be spending, if you want to grow and you got to look at it, anywhere from, 20 to 40 grand a year based on what he showed me. And I said, but here's what you got to think about. Like, you can spend 20 grand. Me, I could spend 20 grand and get you 30. I could spend 20 grand for 10 grand because my capability is a lot better than yours. I was showing, we had a restaurant operator in Arkansas, and it was last July. I was out there shooting my podcast, and he was all excited about this Facebook ad he did, $178. He showed me the results. I showed him the results that my team got because we work with him on similar ad for $10, same exact results. And it's like, dude, you spent $178 to get what we get for 10. And so that's what I would tell a lot of operators is that stop disliking marketing, stop disliking sales. And just like you hire an accountant, I hope, to do your taxes, like you hire an attorney to defend you on a lawsuit, like you pay for an insurance company to insure your property and all your other stuff. I would hope you depend on somebody who's going to help you at a professional level market and sell your goods, because there's a lot of great restaurants out there that just suck at marketing, and they're not busy enough because they've not taken it serious enough. And so that's, one thing. I've got a coach I'm getting ready to hire that's going to help me project my voice better from a standpoint of like what I mean. Because I think I've sugarcoated and been too fancy with a lot of words. And she's like, dude, just call people out. So I've got a new graphic I just got today called ABR Rants, Rant of the Week. And so every week I'm going to go on live and I'm going to talk about a topic, pizza restaurants. Like, I have yet to see a pizza restaurant. The top of their box should be a QR code that says, scan this for your next pizza free. Yeah. Do whatever it takes to get my name, phone number, email, birthday, visit, whatever. Yeah. I mean, and that's a big part of the book, but I hope that answered that part, because I think that there's too many people really, really good at what they do to have people that suck. I mean, there's a reason I didn't make pizza last night. I went to Rapid Fired Pizza on Mall Road. There's a reason, like I could have went there and probably made a pizza like him, but guess what? It would have cost me 5 times more and it would have sucked. I hired Michael Castleman's restaurant to make me the pizza.
I want to jump in here, actually. The Ghost Dave here. First off, you just sold another book, Matt. Thank you. I'm going to be reading that soon. It arrives tomorrow. I can't wait to see it. Now, I'm going to give a little background on myself just because it sets up the point I'm trying to make here and the questions that I have. So I have a degree in physics and mathematics. I love data. I love numbers. I love dashboarding and the idea of taking crap loads of complex information and turning it into an easy to digest small bite. Now, what I don't understand and has frustrated me for my entire life is marketing. I don't get it. I don't do it for myself because it doesn't make sense to me. And it makes sense to you. So from my perspective, it's a no-brainer. I'm going to outsource it to a guy who gets it. So in that vein, and I still struggle with this, by the way, I have a whole other business, a laundromats that my wife and I own. She's also not a marketing person, which is actually why I'm going to be reading your book and calling you later to ask you a bunch of questions, if you don't mind.
Love it.
Sweet. So what my like, I had this burning need to know also for my clients is how do you sit here as an owner of a business, and if I'm thinking, oh, marketing is just easy, I'll social media, I'll put this out, I'll throw out some ads, I'll put the pictures up. What are like maybe the top 3 things that you see? Because I want to do the back end first before we get into like what to do. And this is awesome. What do you see that people do that's like, hey, red flag, you just mentioned one, which is spending way too much on something that could be done cheaper. And we know outsourcing is a good idea here, which is where Dave and I sit in, because you say restaurants are sales and marketing. Can't agree more. Sales, the retail, it's a retail business and you got to market it. We operate on the back end of it. We're the lagging indicator. You're the leading one, right? You get the people in. You get the people in. So what have you seen where you go, oh my God, man, if you don't, and you probably don't know, because this is not your world, but if you're doing this, you're wasting your money or your time, or you're making it worse or whatever. Like, where do you see those like top 3?
So you're speaking my language. It's funny that you said that. I was literally going to say there's 2 things I look at when I look at business: success and failure, and it's leading indicators and lagging indicators. The first time I had ever heard the term wasn't too long ago, even though I already knew we practiced it, but I heard a guy talking about at a podcast. It was Brad Lee. I don't know if you've seen him or not. I call him the other Grant Cardone because they're really similar as far as their look and sound. But Brad had a guest on in the real estate business. he said, I remember telling my boss that I wanted to sell 20 homes in a year. And he said, well, there's your problem. You're focused on selling 20 homes. That's a lagging indicator, because the leading indicator is, what is it? How many people you talk to on a weekly basis that eventually get you to a point where you have listings and showings and all that good stuff. So when I look at a restaurant sales, them looking at sales on a monthly basis is a lagging indicator, because there's so many things that get there. And so like I look at marketing from this standpoint, that you've got your attention, you've got your Facebook post you made. Well, did that Facebook post help you get to the next step, which to me is getting somebody's data? And then once you get somebody's data, the next step is knowing that that data converted to a customer. So if you get 5 people, I just got a call with a lady named Bettina. She's a marketing director for a brand called Pita Jungle in Arizona and Phoenix. And we work with that. I think we have 22 stores we work with. And her percentage, she was at like right around 20% of the people that opt in the last 90 days to this database have walked in the restaurant. And so to me, that's a key indicator. It's like, hey, we spent money and effort and time on these different tactics to get attention, in-store marketing, website marketing, Yelp, Google My Business, and then of course, Facebook and Instagram ads and organic. Well, that led people to going to a place to give us their data. Well, that's cool. But if you can't figure out that that's the right data, because what happens if that 20% is 1%? Because now all of a sudden we've got a database of a bunch of people that aren't coming to the restaurant. The fact that's 20% was great. That means 1 out of 5 people that gave us their information has already come in the store. I'll take that because that's pretty solid. And then the next part of that is how you use that data. So when you ask me 3 things that I see people making a mistake, number 1 is they don't have a clear-cut journey from attention to customer. They don't know what it takes. Restaurants do not have on a piece of paper that says, okay, this is Matt Plapp. Matt Plapp, like my ideal customer for our company, America's Best Restaurants, his name is Jim. And his profile is built around an actual guy named Jim, who is a 60-year-old guy that owns a couple restaurants and has all these qualities that make him a perfect fit for us to help him. Restaurants should have the same thing. They should have that avatar and then say, okay, here's our avatar. Christina is our person that we want to get. What does her journey look like? She sees a Facebook post. What happens next? She clicks a button, goes into our loyalty program. What happens next? She goes on a loyalty program. So I think that's a big element, not knowing that. And that leads to the second part of it is I don't think enough restaurants are doing what it takes on the front end to build data. And what I mean by that is I go in restaurants all the time. I would challenge anybody in this country, in this industry, that I've been to more restaurants than anybody the last 24 months. We never stop. Every 2 weeks from 3-4 years ago until now, I've traveled to restaurants. We have 40 on the docket next week. And I observe and I watch. The one thing I never see the person in that restaurant before they take a credit card, asking that customer in a convincing way to give them their information. I had a restaurant recently who got 50 people in 3 months to give their information in the restaurant. Like, dude, that's an accident. Like, I could walk in your restaurant in one day, and if I put together a convincing presentation, I'm going to get 50 people out of the 500 that come in through your line. You didn't take any effort. And what you didn't do is you didn't make it part of the process. A standard operating procedure in our company, every division, everything we do has an SOP. And just like that person that works that line at that restaurant, that fast casual, has to wash their hands, has to put gloves on, has to make the product, get to the end, wrap it up the right way. Before they take somebody's money, the number 1 goal should be to find out if you have their information, because otherwise you're hoping and praying that that person comes back next week or 2 weeks from now. And then the third part is they use the data they do have incorrectly. And what I mean by that is most restaurants, I'd say probably, unfortunately, 99% of them that use data send the same exact message to the same exact list every week. So if they have a list of 10,000 people, those 10,000 people are getting the exact same message, regardless if you're a male or female or a new, frequent, or lost customer. That's the key metrics we look at. And then on top of that, the message every week is a sales pitch. I'm married. Guys, are you guys married? Do you have significant others, I guess I could ask?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
I'm 30 years in, Matt. What do you need to know? I've got all the answers.
Perfect. I'm 22 years in.
I'm only 3, so I'm a
Okay.
newbie here.
Freaking rookie. So
Right.
you're out now. So we'll go with the 30-year. We'll go with the old guy. So Dave, if you went home the last 30 years every day, and what's your wife's name?
Jenny.
You said Jenny, did an interview with Matt Plapp today. I got to say, the fact I can get Matt Plapp on the air is unbelievable. I'm a genius.
Mhm.
Then you say, you know what, tomorrow, man, went to the gym, ran a 6-minute mile. Blonde next to me was checking me out, asked me what your questions. Tomorrow went to the track, had the best lap. If every day you went home and talked about you wouldn't have got the 30 years. So Dave, that's how you go from 3 to 30 is the conversation needs to be about your wife, about your kids, about you. That's the problem with restaurants. Every week, I challenge you guys, go to your inbox and look for a restaurant that you get an email from and look at every email the last 2 years. Why you should come eat there. Why not do something different? Why not start a conversation? So our team, one of the things that's in the book, we talk about retention marketing. Mm-hmm. And when I say retention, it's got a two-pronged name. It's retention from a standpoint, it's retaining them as a customer, but it's also retaining their attention. And the way to retain people's attention more often is to not suck at talking to them. And so if you're going to look at 52 weeks a year, you shouldn't email your list 52 weeks a year. So number one, cut that in half and say 26. So you're going to email your list 26 weeks a year. And ideally, you're going to segment your list. Like us, we segment, like Peta Jungle just got the call with her. She was looking at her dashboard. They were 40% lost customers. So the people we've gained in marketing, we know that 40% of them said they hadn't been in a long time. 40% were frequent and 20% are new. We're going to have a different campaign for each one of them because a new customer needs to be convinced to take the first step. A lost customer needs to be convinced, hey, come back, give us a hug, we miss you. The frequent customer just needs a high five, doesn't even need anything because they come all the time, except for consistent attention. So what we'll do is that first week of the month, we market to the new customers only. How do we get that person to take the first step? The second week of the month, we market to frequent customers. And a good frequent customer campaign I use all the time as an example, let's say Father's Day, May. Father's Day is in June. Late May, you send out an email to your database, not about coming to eat at your restaurant on Father's Day, not about making a reservation, not about buying a freaking gift card. Hey, dads, or hey, sons and daughters, click the button below, go to Instagram, comment on the Instagram post linked in the button below, a special memory of you and your dad. Now, all of a sudden, I get an email that's not about the restaurant. It's about me and my dad. And I'm like, hell yeah. And I click the button. I go to Instagram. I put a picture. This is me and my dad at a golf course. This was his favorite cigar. This was on Father's Day last year. We've all got those pictures in our camera roll. We had a Mother's Day when I use an example all the time, place in Conover, North Carolina, over 200 women, because we only targeted frequent women. So we didn't hit every woman on the list. We hit frequent women the second week of April. They went to a Facebook post and over 200 of them left a picture of them and their mom and a 2 to 3 sentence story. So when you think about your restaurant, there's restaurants I love, Barleycorn, Rapid Fired Pizza, Hothead Burritos, Walt's Itching Post, Colonial Cottage. I don't need to know about their food, about their drink specials, about the entertainment. I just need to see their name more often. And the key to getting people to see your name more often is to not suck at marketing, meaning don't send me a email every week about your wings. Send me an email every other week. And maybe every fourth email I get is about your wings, but the first one's about me. The second one's about something in the area. Third one's about a contest. Stop talking about yourself, because what happens is that 1,000-person email list that you started with in 12 months is down to 600 because 400 of them opted out. And then of the 600, only 100 are opening it now versus the 400 that were, because they know what the hell's in the email, some reason for you to come spend money.
So I think this is where I just think that's all gold. I really do. And I don't, in my opinion, is of the people that we work with, and Dave and I work with hundreds, if not thousands of people like you do. I don't think if I were to speak for them, I'd say they just don't have that depth of understanding of marketing. They just don't. And you can only be an expert, like a true expert at so many things.
Yeah.
And there's not many. And there's a difference between marketing, a professional grade marketing, which is what you're taking us through, right? I'm just sitting here going, God, yeah, like all of that. Yes, yes, yes. But there's a difference between that and being a promoter of your venue where you have here's where I think people make a lot of mistakes. There's a lot of folks who own popular bars and restaurants, and they're a big personality. Yeah. They are popular, they're gregarious, and people love them, and they can put up posts and people follow them. And as a result, they are good at marketing. That's not marketing.
You know what they're good at? You know what they're good at? They're good at advertising. I always say advertising is easy, marketing is hard. Advertising takes zero plan, and sometimes you can get lucky as shit and be good at it because you're a big personality, you're very good looking, you've done something trendy. Marketing takes tactic and expertise and actual wherewithal to do it.
That is a really, before you continue, Dave, that is a really amazingly precise and insightful statement. I've never heard anybody put it that way, and you just clicked in my head. Holy crap! That's I've never been able to explain this to my client. I have a client that they have 3 people in the business who are incredible on social media. If they leave, that's a problem. But right now they've been there for 3 or 4 years. But it's advertising. It's not marketing. It's just them putting it out there. And I could never explain to them why this isn't effective. I mean, it's great. They do well, but it could be better. Good God, man. I want people to just like sit there and reflect on that statement. That's advertising, not marketing.
Yeah.
All right. I'm sorry. Back over to you, Dave. It's
okay. And I think too, Matt, look, I think we could spend a day doing this. So I'm going to try to keep some things concise and not, like I said, steal the whole book. So I'm trying to come up with a handful of original thoughts so I don't get all the book content. The data that you deliver, Dave and I are always preaching to folks that there's a folks, again, in our industry run on a lot of instinct. Let's take it differently. If you worked at a big organization, let's say we all work together in one company, your job would be marketing. Like big companies that's all that person does. If we worked for, say, Levi Strauss and we did you'd be the marketing guy, I'd be the nerdy inventory guy running the warehouses and stuff. And Dave would be designing a new material for the stretch and skinny jeans and stuff, right? And we would dedicate an entire career to being an expert in that field. And when you're running an independent bar and restaurant, and even the chains, but you seem to work with what I would still consider to be smaller chains, maybe you have the bigger one, but okay.
No, the big ones hate us.
Oh yeah, right.
The big ones have somebody that's afraid to lose their job if they engage us because their boss goes, "You don't know that?" And I'm
we have the same thing. Yep. We're dealing with all the same people, same thing. They hate us too. But one of the first things that struck me in this industry when I came in is I met these owners. I was like, you are trying to be everything. You're trying to design the menu. You're trying to figure out what the portion sizes should be. You're trying to figure out real estate. You're being your own accountant to some extent. You're doing your own inventory. You're doing your own marketing. I mean, it's just so much lands on this team.
You know what cracks me up on that part, that interrupt, is that my company is smaller than I have many clients that are bigger than us. Mm-hmm. And I have to sit down with them every once in a while and go, dude, the difference between you and I is I don't work in my company. I don't have a role. You look on our org chart. Matt Plapp does not exist on our org chart. You exist everywhere. So I tell them, 1, go read some of the books from the EOS system. You learn to get the hell out of your org chart. But number 2, I say the difference is too, like I just had a TV hung out here in front of the podcast studio for the lobby. I had a TV hung in the lower level for our seminar Monday. I could have hung a TV, but you know what? It might fall off eventually. It might not be secure. I was going to drill a hole in the wall and run the cord and plug in a 6 cord. These dudes drilled a hole in the wall and then ran electric up the wall. There's actually an HDMI cord and electric that comes from the TV. Yeah. Like, I'm like, holy shit, that's pretty cool stuff. Like, I would have never thought of that. I was just going to do Kentucky on this. But the reason I say that is I have a company that mows my grass. Mellow Windows came out 2 days ago and cleaned our windows. Janet King came out last night and cleaned my building. I can keep going on and on. I don't do the stuff that doesn't get me to the next level. And I think that's what's holding a lot of restaurateurs back, a lot of business owners, is there was this pride that I used to have myself that we can do it all. Like, I'm the guy that the company turns to. I can do it all. I can fix the toilet. I can do the windows. I can clean this. I can do the Facebook ad. I can make a steak. That's like the stamp, like I'm the guy.
Yeah.
And like, I realized years ago, like, yes, I can do a lot of stuff. I know I'm pretty damn good at a lot of stuff, but I'm an awesome visionary and marketer. And so I stepped back from my company and I'm like, hey, Ashley, you're director of operations. Hey, Doug, you're in charge of sales.
Yeah.
Hey, David, you're my marketing director.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I don't know, there's all these things like I can do everything you talk about, from Facebook ads to texting, to email, to in-store. I have people on my team that do them. We actually outsource our Facebook and Google ads. I have a team of 40 that work with more restaurants than anybody in this country on Facebook and Instagram ads. We do not do our own ads for our company. Andrew does, who has a company out of Nova Scotia. Why? Because Andrew is better at B2B marketing than Matt Plapp's team. And so why I'd rather have him spend $500 instead of me spending $1,500 to get the same outcome, and me pay him $1,000 because I know he's going to optimize it and eventually get it to the next level.
I think that's, God, Matt, I think that's brilliant. You know, the conversation, here's the comment I hear all the time, and Dave will back me up on this. The quote is, I pay someone to do that. I pay my manager to do that, is like, that's the cringe quote that we hear all the time. And the problem with I pay my manager to do that is that becomes the answer to everything, right? Yeah. There's two people in the restaurant, in effect, trying to do everything, the owner and the GM, or some version of those roles. And they just can't. And people aren't crushing the thing that they are an expert on, which is typically, hopefully, some version of hospitality within the venue. Their direct guest experience that they've curated over time, they should be pouring energy into that. If you're pouring your energy into that and doing that at the best possible level, first, that's the most ideal marketing you could have, is just crushing your value prop. But it's almost ever not enough. You got to get a little broader, and that's where we get to you. But I love this idea of a stop doing list. And I was writing some, law, insurance, marketing, inventory, cleaning, accounting. Get all that shit off your plate.
I mean, think about this.
Focus on executing your value proposition like crazy. And one more thing about it, Matt, too, is you can fire a professional, right? So if you cost me X dollars, and you came to me and you would say, Dave, look, you're going to give me some version of, look, I guarantee this, I can do this, and this. I'm so confident in it. If that doesn't happen, you need to get rid of me. Like, you can move in and out of your outsourcing, where if your GM is bombing at the marketing, in a conversation might go like this: Matt, you're my GM. And look, I told you, I want to see a post every day. I want to see something between 2:30 and 5:30. Well, man, look, 3 people called off. It got out of my routine. I haven't posted all week. And now I've got a disciplinary problem with my GM. Yep. And he's trying to do what you hired him to do, which is execute the value prop, run the business. But you're asking him to do marketing. You're asking him to do inventory. You're asking him to hire people and all this other stuff. And I think we are in a time where there's this labor crunch. And I think what you're talking about, where we can outsource to someone who knows what they're doing, hold them accountable, right? So if you come in and you sell me a bill of goods and you don't make good on it,
get out,
right?
Find somebody else.
Yeah,
and it's a lot easier to fire somebody like me. Like, a client canceled their services this morning with our company. Happens every week. We do a lot of business, and about every week we usually lose 3 to 4 clients a month. So every week I get an email. It's like, hey, we're going to cancel our services. And I ask why. We have a conversation. If they go on their way, they go on their way. Half of them stay, half of them leave. But it's easier to do that than it is to fire somebody you just spent a bunch of time training. And also, it's not fair when you're judging somebody on something they're not good at. Right. I mean, you're not hiring my son Cole to come in and work the dishes, and then all of a sudden a week later you're yelling at him because the menu's not priced correctly. Like, why is he doing the menus? Well, I hope he's not. Well, from a marketing standpoint, that's what's happening a lot. And so I think part of the problem is probably our greatest asset is our greatest liability. Mm-hmm. Is that I say this all the time. So if you look back, I'm 45. I remember I got in radio back and TV back in the late 90s. Back then, if you wanted to market your restaurant, let's say Basilia or Bassano, what was it called? Ferrari's Little Italy, the Bassanos. They had a place in Madeira, Ohio called Ferrari's Little Italy. It's still there. It's amazing Italian food, like down the earth, grandma's cooking. And if you were to hire Ferrari, if you were to be Ferrari's Little Italy back in 1999, you had to do direct mail, radio, cable, TV. That was your only choices for marketing outside of a dude on the corner with a little flyer or something. You had to spend money.
Mhm.
You flash forward to 2021, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Twitter, LinkedIn, Snapchat, TikTok. Those are 8 places. Google, probably Yelp, TripAdvisor. There's 10 places right there. Guess what all of them have in common? They're free. And they're also really easy to do. I mean, it's not hard to make a Facebook post. It's not hard to boost a Facebook post. It's not hard to promote an Instagram post. So those are great that now you have all these places, but you also, your liability is that you suck at doing them.
Yeah.
I was at a conference. I spoke at a Facebook conference 2 years ago. And the lady that spoke before me is huge in the Facebook world, like one of the biggest Facebook people around. And she said, our biggest problem at Facebook was the biggest thing we regret doing was the boost post button. Because what happened was we gave a lot of very bad marketers, owners, business owners, the ability to spend 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 bucks really quick. I mean, literally click a button, boost post, target my fans, done. Now, all of a sudden, 2 days later, oh, that didn't work. You know, they're not taking into account the fact that their image sucked, their copy sucked, the call to action sucked. It was that Facebook's boosted post didn't work. So people quit using Facebook advertising because I've tried that, it doesn't work. No, they gave you a mechanism that allowed the worst person possible to do it. That's like if you gave me the ability to rebuild, like if it was easy, like, hey, Matt, here's a way to build a Lamborghini engine or to change your own oil. Oh my God. Lamborghinis suck, like the engines run terrible. Well, yeah, Matt Plapp, you put it together. It's only running 75 horsepower right now, homie. Oh, yeah. That's what those extra bolts are? Okay. Yeah. And that's what the boost button, it gave people the ability to do something they had no business to do. And so our biggest asset is the fact that that's 10 I mentioned. There's probably 30 freaking amazing places that a restaurant can get attention on really easy. The problem is they're not trained to use it. And a lot of them have been, in their mind, burned, had a bad experience. And so they're hesitant to hire a professional. And that's one of my biggest goals. We've got America's Best Restaurants, our media company. We have 2 vans on the road right now. Our vision is 50 vans in 5 years to where we will be on the street shooting 50 restaurants per week with 50 vans. Every restaurant will get to know us. And our goal is to be able to have an impact on that restaurant with a standpoint of helping them talk to their customers much easier and being on their side.
I think that's great.
If you don't mind, Dave, I'd like to go back to an idea that you had earlier, right before Matt had that phenomenal explanation there. So with what we do, and what both of us do, we've got a guy who's brilliant at marketing and 2 guys who are brilliant at the back end on profitability. You were talking about, and you said Dave will agree with me, and this is where I'm going back to. You were talking about the people in the business who we asked to do too much. So I was hired to run an Irish restaurant in Baltimore, Sláinte, a guy named Patrick Russell. Just wonderful place, amazing mentor. It was a great experience, but it was that classic experience of, oh, you're an engineer. You were an engineer. Can you figure out micros and learn this whole thing for me and reprogram the whole thing? Oh, we need to start getting more people in. Can you do marketing? Can you do this? And you're asking somebody like me, one thing. I love learning. I love input. That's one thing. But even for me, it was a lot. You're asking somebody to broaden themselves and diversify and try to master things. Like you said, it's really hard to master more than one thing. You're asking somebody to do that in a space where they already have a specific set of responsibilities and they're accountable for very specific things that might not have to do with these other pieces. And I had this concept in my head for a very long time about, getting to an output of a person, right? I'm not saying that we're trying to squeeze something out of them, but where do you go from I'm a kid in high school to now I'm 40, and in high school I was interested in all these things, but at 40 I've got this, I'm really good at this thing, and in my head it comes down to talent, right? So I'm good at certain things. Like Matt, you said earlier, I'm brilliant at this specific aspect of the marketing. I don't want to be in my org chart. Me, Dave, I am phenomenal at learning new things. It's actually a really incredible skill I have. I can learn things really fast. But mostly around data and numbers and science. And Dave, I'm just going to grab one example. His ability to identify the skills and the abilities of people it confounds me. I don't understand how he does it. I watch him do it. It's brilliant to me. So you have a talent, you have education, whether that education is in school or that education is through a mentor. It doesn't matter where you get the education. So you've got talent, education, and then experience, right? So I apply that education over time, and now I have experience. And I find it's a huge gap in restaurants in particular. It's worse than anywhere I've seen. Like I've worked for a loudspeaker company, Polk Audio. I've worked with Argonne National Labs. I've worked in a bunch of places, and they specialize, right? There's one guy who does nothing but CAD. There's one guy who does nothing but calculate the mass of a particle or whatever. And in restaurants, we're like, hey, do everything. You're gonna literally do everything, and ignoring the fact that to master something takes to at least, and I'd love to hear Dave and Matt, your take on this, at least talent, education, experience. So applying talent education over a long period of time to have this mindset that anybody can do all these little things it baffles me. It really does. And again, going back to my earlier question, how do you look at your team and really get your head around the fact that, Dave, you said it earlier, I need my floor manager to focus on customer service. I need my bar manager to focus on getting my bartenders to do customer service, whatever. How do you really step back as an owner and identify these areas, this very consistent theme, and correct me if you think I'm wrong, of getting everybody to do everything and determine where to first put your money into an outsourced solution that'll apply more money to the business?
No, I'm a proponent of you do what you're great at. You get rid of what you suck at. I think too many times we're taught to work on your weakness. And yeah, I think.
Sorry, you just said something that Dave and I love. Strength finders, man.
Yeah, I mean, my weakness, I'm a jackass. I know it. I mean, I'm not going to work on it. It is what it is. You either like me or you don't. There's weaknesses we all have. And there's this whole analogy of working on your weakness. Like, yeah, if I'm Michael Jordan and I got to learn how to shoot a foul shot, okay, it's a little different. But from my standpoint, I can do a lot of stuff. There's some stuff I'm terrible at, so I'm not going to work on it. I'm going to work on what I'm great at. And, the one thing that saddens me the most with the restaurant business in particular is that, and I grew up around this, so maybe this is why I kind of see it as a real big glaring issue, is my dad is similar to a lot of restaurateurs. The restaurateurs I know got into business for one of two reasons. They had a very unique skill set at making amazing food, or they had a very unique skill set at making people happy. That's what I've seen with most people that I know are in the restaurant business that do well. And the one thing that really saddens me is my dad's that make happy person. He's not in the restaurant business, but he's been in the insurance business his whole life. And he's been a business coach. He worked in retail with me and my brother at the boat and RV dealership. My dad's number one skill set was making people happy and talking to people. And so when I go to restaurants and I see that owner running back and forth, even if there is a labor shortage, I don't care about the labor shortage. If you're the operator of the restaurant and you fall into the category that I got in the business because I love this environment out here, then you know what? Quit running stuff or quit being in the kitchen. Let people fail and figure out how to do it on their own. You need to be out there shaking hands, kissing babies, having conversations, because at the end of the day, that's why you got in the business. My dad, we had the boat dealership, and I remember this. I was forced into leadership at a young age. We started our boat dealership in 1999. So it was 2021. So that's 22, 23 years ago, actually 22 years ago, September. So I'm 45, so I was 23. I had the fortunate and unfortunate that I was very successful my first year out of college in radio sales, making six figures, 100% commission, came out of the bat. My dad trained me. He's the Michael Jordan of sales. No shit. He could sell you guys anything you already own. Like he could convince you to buy the helmet behind you, and you'd be like, oh, I just bought my own helmet. Crap. But he trained me, and I became a very successful radio salesperson right out of college. And it was good and bad. It was good because I made money. It was bad because all of a sudden I had a bigger ego than ever. I was dominant, and it made me into a jerk to some extent. But when I got to the next 2 years, we built our boat dealership up from a hobby within 4 years to a $15 million business, 3 location, 40 employees. Well, guess who was in charge of everybody? Me. That was my goal. My role. I was the president of the company. I was in charge of everybody. And I will never forget, my dad and I were identical. It's scary how similar we are, except for the 30-year age gap. He's 75, I'm 45. And when I was at an early age, early on, I recognized, unfortunately, that my dad was not good at paperwork. That literally every single boat he sold, like the only negative we ever had when his boat got delivered to customers was there was 5 things missing, because dad got talking so much and had to fill out the paperwork, and he hated paperwork. And the person shows, hey, by the way, your dad said we get 2 jackets, an extra prop, and a depth binder. Oh, and I just always assumed it was right because dad always left it off. Well, the one thing I realized was, I'm like, you know what? I tried to force it on him. You got to do your paperwork. Yeah, I put all these systems in place. And after about 6 months, I remember sitting there going, you know what? Dad's good at this. He sucks at everything else. I hired an assistant, Michelle Whitley. You follow my dad and you do whatever he doesn't do. You make sure every piece of paperwork, you make sure what you literally listen to every conversation he sells. Because we're selling 700 units a year. And he was probably involved in 30% of them. I'm like, you sit in his office and you listen to every word and you take notes and you write it down, because dad's not doing another piece of paperwork. And the same thing happened with a guy named Sean Weeda, who owns a boat dealership in Northern Kentucky, who is an absolute beast. Same exact thing. I tried to force upon him paperwork and details and this. I came to realize, you know what? Sean is a badass at selling boats and at making customers happy and identifying the exact bass boat, fishing boat that they needed to go fishing with their husband or their wife or their kids, whatever. He's not a dude that understands how to fill out a form. And the same thing, Michelle Whitley was like, hey, now Michelle, now you're in charge of Sean and my dad. And then that was one thing I was good at, was understanding that. And I think that's one thing I've carried out here. My team, we have departments. We have account management, we have acquisition, we have automation, which is the build team, and we have retention. People work in their departments. They have a very skill set. And I think restaurants, unfortunately, and it's not restaurants, it's small business.
Small business. Yep.
We all fall into the pride. Like there's that stamp of pride I used to have 5-6 years ago, that Matt Plapp grinds. I work 100 hours a week. I'm up till midnight. Now, the pride for me is I'm going to leave at 4:00 today and go to the gym. And I'm going to get home at 5:30 and go to a football game with my wife and son.
You know, Matt, if I can jump in really quick, yeah. Pride, but also I think it's also a bit of fear of spending money.
Oh yeah.
And you see a marketing, like you said earlier, I see a marketing guy as an expense. I see an inventory guy as an expense. I see whatever that guy or that assistant as an expense, right?
Yep. And people are like that. It's tough. You've got to look at marketing and understand that you're going to win some and lose some. I spent 75 G's last June in 3 weeks, 75 grand. And I'm a smaller company. Like I've got clients of mine that do more than me that spend $5 grand that same month. I spent 75 grand because number one, I had it. And I've always been taught that, cash isn't king, that sometimes cash sitting in your bank that makes you nothing, doesn't do any good. If I can make that 75 grand, make me 300. Well, what happened was I spent 75, and part of me, and it's kind of funny, I practice what I preach. I have to think, I always tell people, what we spend on the front end, you're going to get a little benefit on the front, but you should have a lot on the end if you do it correctly. And so I remember literally spending this money and thinking in mid-July, like, oh my God, like I'm an idiot. Like I should have did this. I was questioning things. Well, then guess what? August comes around, we have our biggest month ever. And I'm like, oh. And so part of me would think, okay, what did we do in August that worked? No, I looked and I analyzed. It was what we did in June that finally caught up with August. And I think that that's a big thing too, is that we're a lot of entrepreneurs are risk adverse. Unfortunately, like me, I'm the opposite. Like I can't tell you how many times I've had $70 in my bank account running multi-million-dollar companies because I'm like, oh, I see an idea. Like this building I'm in, this is a 9,000 square foot building. It's $1 million+ building. We've put over $250,000 into it. We've cash flowed almost all of it. And I don't need a 9,000 square foot building right now, but I see an opportunity. I saw an opportunity to buy a piece of property that's right where we're at. They gave us great revenue growth. They gave us a great place to grow our company. And I opened up a place here for restaurants to come collaborate and do some stuff. But a lot of people, I have friends of mine, like, dude, like, are you insane? Like, you saw the building and bought it in a week. You're like, you didn't think at all. I'm like, well, I mean, I've been thinking about it for years, but I'm not risk adverse, whereas a lot of people are too risk adverse. It's like there needs to be a tweener. But I think honestly, the biggest thing comes down to, and this is, I've said this example many times, and this is in defending the restaurant owner on spending money, what they would consider advertising, is that it's, imagine a house. Like, we probably all have houses, right? You have a house, Dave, both Daves, you guys both have a house, I have a house. Imagine if you bought that house. So you got a realtor that sold you the house. You've got an inspector that inspected it. You've got a title company that insured it. You got a bank that financed it. You got an insurance guy who did his insurance stuff. You got, like, I had a pool put in my house. There's a pool guy, the fence guy, all this stuff happened at this house. And you look back and you never get to go to the house. And so in 6 months, everybody's like, hey, Matt, the house is great. You got it. It's awesome. Freaking pool's great. I was out there with my wife the other day. You're like, well, I've never got to see my house. And so you're always waiting to see the house. Imagine if you never got to see it. At some point, you're like, okay, I give up. To me, that's marketing, is that a lot of businesses have never had a correct marketing plan that showed them that it did something. Like, I was talking to Bettina, and like, I could pull up their dashboard right now. They've spent $10,000 in 3 months on this marketing plan that has generated about $2 million in impressions. Those 2 million impressions. Those 2 million impressions have generated a database of 13,000 people. Those 13,000 people have driven 40,000 in upfront sale. We can look at all these tangibles. And like I say, I tell restaurants all the time, I'm trying to get like a little more aggressive with it. It's like, hey, if we've on the front end seen that success, do the math. That if I can get these 500 people of this like 3 months, if I can get 500 of those people to come back 20 more times on a consistent basis the next 3 years, holy shit, we just made an impact on our sales. And I say impact because I think increase is a bad thing to say, because I can't say an increase because I don't know what you're doing to decrease it. I don't know what the pandemic's doing to decrease it. I can make an impact because I know what I can do. But I think the negative is they've never seen that. They've never seen, I had a client I talked to the other day, we were talking about, he himself, not even us. He took some advice from the book, called me, because I give myself an all the time. He called me. I didn't even know the guy. Called me up, ran a couple things by me. I said, love it. He ran an ad campaign on Instagram, got like 300 people to engage, and literally had 100 people walk in his restaurant. And he's like, holy shit, man, this is the first time I can, without a doubt, say I did A, B happened, C happened. I can see where I can get D to happen now. And I think that's one of the problems with marketing is it's like this mystery house that hey, you know what? I bought, I'm paying for. People say it's there because all the advertising guys will tell you if you're a radio, oh man, your radio ads are going great. How do you know? Because my boss told me to tell you that. I was that guy in the 90s.
Yeah. Data has always been a bit of this gold mine that you could never find for any business. Trying to get personal information used to be nearly impossible. And for a lot of places, and we can start to wrap it up with this too, Matt and Dave, I'll go to say CVS, right? So I went and got my COVID shots, and I can't get in and out of CVS without them wanting my personal information. Now they don't need it. There's no reason for them to have it other than I know when I get home, there's going to be something in my inbox from CVS, right? There's going to be a discount, a promotion, there's going to be something. And there's an element to that. There's certain customers where I definitely do not want them having my personal information. I'm not frankly interested in having a personal relationship with my gas station, with CVS, right? I just piss off. I just don't care. But I think this is what's unique to our industry. I think most people, bars and restaurants are absolutely personal experiences. People are choosing these places based on the interactions they have and how people make them feel. And I think for the most part, if restaurant owners are executing their value prop and they're doing that right, people want to come back. I think in our industry, people are very willing to engage with their personal information because they know they're going anyway and they're happy to go. I want you to touch on one last thing, given that setup. Is I there's certain things as you flip through a book, there's certain things you highlight, you go, oh yeah, that's resonates. And sometimes they're the most simple things. you talked a little bit about the offers.
Yep.
And cheap offers and how people hold back on that. And I thought, yeah, you know what, frankly, if I was I can hear myself saying the words that you were describing in your book. Why don't we touch on that for a moment, and then we'll wrap this thing up in about an hour.
Can I share my screen?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Oh,
I think Dave's got the controls.
Yep. Give me 1 sec. I'm sure it's blocked. Zoom is awesome.
As you do that, we'll talk about offers. So
okay.
Here's what I look at. I've got a 17 and a 19-year-old. And my 7-year-old is pretty solid at doing what we ask. He listens. My 19-year-old is me. She like doesn't listen. It's like, no, you got to convince me why. And so I've grown up with the connotation of, okay, Paige, I need you to do this. How do I get this outcome? What does it need to take to happen? When I was a kid, I had terrible allergies. I had to get 3 shots 3 times a week for like 2 years when I was a kid in elementary school. I hated shots. But I also got to a point where my mom's like, okay, how do I make this happen? Because it's part of his health. He doesn't get it. So guess what? We went to Baskin Robbins every damn time. I was like, oh, Baskin Robbins. Oh, yeah, I'll get shots.
Yeah.
And so
shot.
Yeah.
So I think you've got to look at what is the least path of resistance to success. And so if I own a steakhouse and I know that every time Matt Plapp comes, and there's an example in the book on, I think it's page 70 something, 77, I want to say. There's like a little graph of me, a bunch of Matts. No, it's not 77. That's way late in the book, but it's in here somewhere. There it is, page 56. And it talks about what if you had 100 Matts equal to $100,000. And what that was if I'm a steakhouse and I know like this particular place we go is average check's about $250 when we go there. We go there like 4 times a year. And it's my birthday, my wife's birthday, my parents' anniversary, because my dad literally calls me the week of his anniversary. He's like, hey, what's going on, man? I'm like, no. He's like, yeah. Saturday is? I'm like, Saturday? I don't know what. He's like, it's my mom's like 400th anniversary. I'm like, oh, so you want us to go to dinner? But that would be also all nice of you. So we go to dinner at this place. Yeah. So if we go on, my birthday, my wife's, my anniversary, my mom and dad's, whatever, it's 4 times. And we're going to come. It's going to happen because it's a very special place. It's a good place. But you know what? I would go there every week. Like it's not out of the realm for me to figure out a way that maybe I don't take 5 people and spend $250. Maybe I go every week and take 2 people and spend $150, but I would go there every week. And the reason we don't is that they're not in my head enough. And so the argument you would get from a place like this, I'm not giving away a steak. I'm like, so if you could get Matt Plapp to come back 4 more times a year, you wouldn't give him a free steak, a free ribs, a free drink, a $100 gift card, just for the fact that you can gain his data. And so that's like the bribery part. But let's talk about the offer, because the idea behind most people is, you know what? I'm not going to give a free appetizer. I'm going to give a free appetizer with purchase. And I don't know if this example is in the book or not, I can't remember, but this happened with one of our restaurant clients a long time ago, back in like 2014, when we were developing this concept of what we do now. Was we had 3 locations that we were doing this for. And the one guy was a complete jerk about it. And he's like, you're not right, Matt. I'm not doing this, that, and the other. I said, okay, that's fine. I said, let's do an A/B test with your store. We'll do free appetizer with purchase of entree, which sucks, by the way. Because if I come to your restaurant, I'm getting an entree anyways. Like, what does it matter? Do people come to your restaurant and sit there and look around? I don't think it happens very often. Maybe they do. Maybe I'm wrong. I've never seen it. Yeah. And I said, the other location, who she's a sweetheart and she listens to me because she knows I'm the expert, we're going to do a free appetizer, no strings. Well, about 2 months in, came up and I said, hey, we're going to switch. I talked to the owners. We're going to switch to everybody to this free appetizer because it's working better. Oh, how do you know that? I said, I'm glad you said it. And we were at a meeting, the 3 GMs, the one owner who's in charge. I slid a little document across the table. I made it on Microsoft Word and I had the stats. I mean, literally, it was no line. It was like, okay, we ran an ad campaign. We got people to opt in. The people that opted in could walk in the restaurant with said offer. And we have a digital redemption process so we know what happens. And we cross-reference that with Aloha, the point of sale, to make sure Matt's numbers weren't fudged. They're all accurate by 2%. This was the give or take. We looked at it and I said, okay, so for every 100 people that gave us their information for the buy appetizer or buy entree, get an appetizer, 130 gave us their information on the free appetizer. So we got 30 more people. And I said, okay, and of those people, of the 30, yeah, we had like 5 people come in, get an appetizer, get a water at the bar, and get the hell out. The other thing was, though, we had 20 something more redemptions of the people who came in with the free app. We have better redemption percentage. So we had 30 more people, and then we had like a 20% swing on the redemption percentage. So we got more people opt in and more people walk in. If you extrapolate that over a year and over 10,000 opt-ins, now obviously you're talking about 10,000 opt-ins versus 13,000. And you're talking about 4,000 redemptions versus 2,000. And so my question to this guy was, okay, so you're telling me what's the old phrase? You want to walk over $1 to save a penny? And that's the perception. Like people's mind, people love free. People love something free, even if it's the same value. Hey, I'm going to give you, I got a coupon the other day for my birthday. It was back in May, a couple months ago. It was like $10 off a purchase of $100. Was my birthday gift. Like, so you gave me a coupon for my birthday. I appreciate it, bro. Another place gave me a free dessert. It's the same thing. I'm going to spend $100. The dessert retails $10. The food cost is $2.50. And I think that's the problem, is that people can't think long-term. So I'll share my screen. I'll share what I'm talking about. Can I share now, you think?
Yep, I got you.
Cool. Okay. And so I'm sharing this, and I blocked the client's name out, I think. So we'll find out. Can you guys see my screen?
We'll have Chris post-op it.
Yeah. But I think, yeah. So this is our dashboard, and this isn't a sales pitch this is literally just showing you kind of just where my brain goes. So this is a restaurant that has spent, and this is let's see, 11, this is 11 months of data, because their 12th month would be November. I just talked to this owner the other day. It's a fast food Mexican restaurant. So like think Taco Bell, but local. They've spent $15,000 on everything, on my team to run all the marketing, on my team to do the back end emails and texts, on the Facebook ads, the Instagram ads, the in-store marketing, you name it, 15 grand all in 11 months. So what, $1,200 something a month over a year. That has gotten them, that's just the paid impressions there. We actually did the math, paid, and that's an annual impressions across the board was like 1,000,001 impressions is what they got. We're in the process of tweaking this dashboard because this only shows one ad. But across the entire board, they had about 1,000,001 impressions. So if you look at that 15 grand, what a restaurateur will do is look at the very bottom corner there, middle, where it says sales, $16,688.24. So go, look, I spent 15 and got 16. That sucks. Yeah, that would suck if that was the story. But the story is actually 3-pronged. Number one, you're going to spend money to market anyways. So if you're spending money to market, you got to marketing your awareness, and then you got your ABR, your awareness, your build, and your retention. So in this case, this guy's impressions were 1 million plus, is reach, all this other fancy metrics. So if you chop that 15,000 in a third, he spent 5,000 to get 1 million plus impressions for a one location taco place in the middle of the Midwest. That's pretty good for 5 grand. Now you look at the other 5 grand, that was built for the middle part, build. We want to build a database. So they had 3,900 people give them a phone number, 3,700 an email, 2,900 give them a birthday. So we've got a database now, and we can look at that database and say, what's it comprised of? 16% frequent, 62% new, 20% lost. So we have a very in-depth look at, okay, we're getting a lot of people who weren't coming here or who never have come here. And then the last part is the sales part. Yes, a third of that, 5,000, went to get on the front end $16,000 in sales, 3-to-1, not terrible, not awesome, but it's somewhere in the neighborhood of break even, but more importantly, 16%. So what I try to explain to restaurateurs is one key metric to understand is your acquisition cost, is what does it cost me to get somebody to walk through my doors? And in this case, it cost this guy $1,796. Well, guess what? If we can take those 1,371 redemptions, that's 1,371 people. If we can get those 1,371 people to come back to a fast food taco place, which honestly they eat it like 2 or 3 times a week when they're frequent customers, if we can get them to come back 10 times a year, those next 10 visits, there's no acquisition cost. You already acquired them. And so that's where it comes down to understanding the value ladder, is that if you can see that you spent money, and that's the problem, is most small businesses, they see this 15,000. They can't tangibly look and say, oh, it got 55,000 impressions on this one ad. Oh, it got 3,700 emails. Oh, it got 1,371 redemptions. Oh, it got 16,000 in sales. And so, like, give you another look at this. This is a pretty cool breakdown we do just from the ad spend part. as you look at your 30-day mark, the very bottom, in 30 days, this restaurant spent $286.49. Let's go back to that boosting Facebook post. This is a Facebook ad campaign. Let's imagine you boost a post for $286. Most restaurants will just see some metrics on the ad. This client can look at it and say, look, we got 93 people. And by the way, this is what I talk about in the book. This is things that are in here. And then my first book, Don't 86 Your Restaurant Sales, shows some of the tangible, tactical, geeky stuff on the back end. But for $286, 93 people raised their hand. So they interacted with a Facebook ad. They went into a tool and gave their visit frequency, first name, last name, email, cell phone number, and birthday. For $286, 93 people did it. That's pretty good. $2.50, $3 a person. That's $3. I think my math's right, something like that. And then, no, my bad. I'm looking at this wrong. 423 did that. I came and read my own dashboard. So $286 was spent. 423 people took that action. So for less than $1, they got people to give you all that information. So that's pretty cool on the front end. Of those, 93 of them walked in the restaurant and spent $1,100. So you spent $286 and you got tangible tactics. So that's what I talk about with marketing, is that's the house. They got to visit the house. They got to get in the pool. They got in the hot tub, one night, late night with their bride nude. I mean, that's what it comes down to, is that when you can actually see things happen. And I don't blame a lot of restaurateurs because they've never seen that depth. And a lot of them are skeptical when they see it. It's like, Bernie Madoff, hey, look what we did. But when they actually see it, it's pretty cool to see their excitement, to see, we get sometimes 15, 20 clients come on a board a week. I don't deal with most of them. But when I do deal with a couple of them, I get the text at Friday night at 9, like, dude, 12 people came in tonight. It's not that 12 people is going to impact their business. It's that I saw the promised land. Yeah. And I think that people need one of my biggest reasons you asked about why I wrote the book. I want people to realize the promised land is there. Yeah. That if you consistently put a plan in place, how do I attract attention? How do I build a database off the attraction? How do I monetize? How do I prove that I'm on the right path? And then at the end of the day, how do I have more long-term conversations with my clients? You will win, because at the end of the day, that database I just showed you of 3,000 people or so, if that restaurant talks to those 3,000 people on a consistent basis the next 10 years, they will make a lot of money.
Yeah, it's never been easier to be closer to your guests. Yep. It's never been easier. They've never been more accessible, yet I don't think most people slow down enough to know half of what what you just showed us, which is also in the book. Just what you showed us is to me I'm not the data nerd that Dave Dom is, but the data makes a lot of sense. And if I can start connecting dots between spend and outcomes as an owner, even as you can show me that, I'm like, oh, hang on now, that makes a lot of sense to me. And I'd be willing, my bet is, what I believe is people are willing to spend that money, because bar and restaurant owners are sharp. They're just so damn busy. They're willing to spend the money if you can show them the outcome. And the problem is, if you can't tell the outcome, they're not willing to spend the damn money, and you end up with the bartender making $50 a week. And by the way, I still encourage owners and bartenders to post stuff on Facebook, but that's not the marketing program. That's just having fun and being engaged. And that's different from what Matt's talking about. So Matt, look,
before we go, sorry, I know you're going to wrap it up, man, but
no, it's all right, Dave.
I'm going to flip my data guy. I'm the data guy, and everything you just said, I'm looking at going, data, awesome. But I think most of my clients aren't there. I'm a freak for data. I want to just sort of connect that back to something Nitzel said a little bit while ago. In restaurants, we know, I think we're really, really clear on the fact that it's about how you make people feel. It's not about the food you serve. It can be great. The cocktails can be great, but ultimately it's about experience, about a feeling. And it feels like, Matt, and correct me if I'm wrong here, man, you're talking about how to influence how they feel before they get there and when they're not there. Going back to the very beginning, you were talking about, let's talk about Mother's Day. Let's talk about Father's Day. Show me the experience here. Show me experience there. For the restaurant owners who don't necessarily work in the data mindset, which I think we have a lot of creative people in our industry, right? They're here to have an emotional experience with their guests or to create something amazing. And the data side might be frightening, but if you connect that back to marketing as a process to further increase the positive feeling they have about the venue and increasing that feeling, that feels like a huge win to me.
It's huge. It's huge. You're exactly right. And that's the one part that I recently just wrote a post that I got to do a video on, a blog and all that fancy crap, was that I'm wrong. That back in the day, what started this whole journey, where we decided in 2015, we decided to flip the script, and we had 30 plus clients from 30 plus industries, and we went 100% restaurants, because I figured out a way to prove my client wrong. He said, Matt, I can't deposit likes. That was his exact comment. Nick Ellison, I can't deposit likes. And what he was saying was, he was referring to the fact that we were spending a decent amount of money on digital marketing for his restaurants. They had 3 locations. And he couldn't, the YouTube videos, the 30,000 video views on the beer of the month, he couldn't see how it resonated in beer sales. I'm like, well, it's pretty obvious. Like 30,000 people in this area watched a video about your beer. Like, that's not rocket science, bro. But he still said, can't deposit likes. So I said, okay, cool. So I set out on a mission to prove you could. And my proof was those likes led to data. That data led to a first visit. That first visit led to some assumptions that a normal person can make when you give people good food, good experience, good atmosphere, and then you consistently talk to them. Well, my post I'm making and get ready to do is called I'm Wrong, is that you can't deposit likes, because I'm tired of hiding behind the fact that, like that fancy dashboard I showed you, you don't necessarily need to see that. That if you're a restaurant owner and you do not have enough common sense to know that if there's, let's say there's 1,000 people, if you have 1,000 people that in 2021 saw your brand 10 times, that's 10,000 times they saw your brand. That's going to influence a certain amount of activity for your restaurant. If those same 1,000 people in 2022 with an expert's help saw you 100 times and you had 100,000 impressions, if your food doesn't suck, if your environment doesn't suck, and if your employees and service don't suck, that 90,000 increase in impressions sure as hell is going to drive sales. And so, like, one of the things I danced around for the last couple of years, this is where my new coach, Molly, was like, Matt, you just got to go with what you feel. And like, quit sugarcoating it, quit trying to please and show everybody. Like, no, in my world, at the end of the day, the end all be all is awareness. That if I can help Peta Jungle in Arizona get seen by, in their case, about 30,000 people in the next 12 months on 100 times more scale than they could do on their own. If they can't understand that that's going to impact their sales, then I can't help them. Like, that's just common sense. Like, the more my wife sees me, the more she's either going to stay with me or leave me. And if I don't suck, she's going to stay with me. Well, if your restaurant doesn't suck, the more those people see you, they're going to be reminded of why they enjoy the food, enjoy the atmosphere, enjoy the server. And if you do that, at the end of the day, my whole post is like, you know what? I was wrong. Oh, likes, you can deposit likes. Just get more of them and get them more frequently from the people that know, like, and trust you.
I like it. Matt, tell everyone where they can get your book, and if they want to contact you outside the book, or want to do, heaven forbid, want to use your services, how do they go about doing that?
Yeah, so go to Amazon. It's the best place. We have a ton of them here at the office we could ship, but I can just tell you that sometimes it gets a little slower. Sometimes the guys get doing other stuff, and the book tears up in 3 days versus 1 day. Amazon, it's for $6.99 right now, and Amazon doesn't actually like that. It's supposed to be $29.99, but I've convinced my publisher to play with the algorithm, and so we're going to raise it up soon. But even at $25, I promise you, if you don't like it, I'll send you $25. But it's like $6.99 right now, I think. If you want to reach out, if you want to find out more information, it's mattplapp.com is my website. That'll lead you to americasbestrestaurants.com or restaurantmarketingworks.com. It'll also show you my blog. And then, if you want to talk, and I put this out there all the time, it's my cell phone number. I'm not shy with my actual cell that people call me and text me on all the time. That it's 859-743-2408. You can Google Matt Plapp's phone number. It'll come up.
Look at the bottom of the screen. It's going to scroll across there.
Okay,
Chris,
cool.
scrolling right now. Look right down. It's right there scrolling.
And that's my cell phone number. And so give me a call, shoot me a text. I'll do my damnedest to get back to you quick. And I love having conversations with operators who care, and not to be mean, but who aren't morons. And if you understand that when you give a great product experience and service to people, and you get in front of them more often, that they will come back. I'm game to give you as much. I'll tell you everything I'll read the book to you and let you understand what you need to do. And if that leads to you needing to hire us, cool. If not, doesn't bother me at all. Because like, we're not going to win them all. We're not going to lose them all. So.
Well, Matt, I think this has been wildly insightful. I love spending time having a conversation about real meaningful stuff that I think people can honestly activate on, that are real opportunities in their business. Dave and I don't talk just to be heard. So this has been a real pleasure for me, and I can tell Dave's enjoyed it as well. I've learned a lot. I enjoyed the book. I obviously encourage everyone to get a copy, and feel free to, wherever you see this on the socials, feel free to engage in the socials as well, comment and ask questions. And I would imagine one of the three of us would be responsive to whatever.
Press like,
your needs
press
may be.
subscribe,
So,
press the button, all the buttons.
do all that. We're terrible at marketing. We're not the marketing guys.
We're horrible.
I have a lot to learn. All right. Thanks, everyone. Shut this thing down, Dave.
Will do.